Single dad removed from VIP section. Moments later, the CEO discovered he owned the airline. The entire VIP lounge fell silent the moment two security guards grabbed the tired-looking single father by the arm. Travelers stared as a sharply dressed executive pointed toward the exit with cold confidence, convinced the men had somehow entered a place where he didn't belong. The father never raised his voice. He simply tightened his grip on the worn leather folder containing documents that had taken decades to build. What nobody inside that luxurious lounge knew was that the quiet man they were humiliating wasn't trying to sneak into the VIP section. He was walking into a meeting that would decide the future ownership of the airline itself. Before we continue this emotional journey, if you believe kindness, respect, and second chances can change lives, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes. Your support helps us continue sharing heart-touching stories that remind the world compassion still exists. Daniel Harper had spent the last 7 years raising his 8-year-old daughter, Lily, alone after losing his wife to a sudden illness. Every morning began before sunrise as he braided Lily's hair, packed her lunch, and reminded her that kindness was more valuable than success. Few people knew that behind his simple clothes and quiet lifestyle stood a man who had sacrificed luxury to focus on his family after tragedy nearly destroyed him. He rarely spoke about business anymore, choosing instead to live simply while trusting experienced executives to manage the airline his late father had built from a single aircraft decades earlier. Today, however, everything was different. The company's board had secretly called him back because troubling reports suggested the airline had drifted away from its original values. Daniel purposely traveled without the attention that usually followed wealthy business owners. He carried no expensive luggage, wore no designer watch, and refused private jets because he believed leaders should experience the same service as ordinary passengers. As he entered the airport's elegant VIP lounge, employees glanced at his faded jacket and scuffed shoes before silently judging him. Some whispered that he looked lost. Others assumed he had entered by mistake. Daniel ignored the looks because life had taught him that appearances often hide the greatest stories. Only minutes later, Veronica Shaw, the airline's acting CEO, arrived surrounded by assistants and senior executives. Brilliant but obsessed with image, Veronica believed luxury defined success. The moment she noticed Daniel sitting quietly with a cup of coffee, she frowned. Without asking questions, she concluded he was damaging the exclusive atmosphere reserved for elite customers. She instructed security to remove him immediately before important investors arrived. Daniel calmly stood as security approached. He offered no resistance and no explanation. Years earlier, anger would have controlled him, but fatherhood had transformed his heart. He had promised Lily never to answer disrespect with more disrespect. The security officers felt uncomfortable because the quiet man's dignity didn't match the accusations being thrown at him. Yet they followed orders as guests watched the humiliating scene unfold. At that exact moment, the chairman of the airline's board rushed into the lounge after receiving a message that Daniel had arrived. His face turned pale when he saw security escorting the company's true owner toward the exit. He immediately called out Daniel's name with visible panic. Every conversation stopped. Veronica slowly turned around, confused by the chairman's frightened expression. Within seconds, reality struck like thunder. The chairman publicly introduced Daniel Harper as the majority owner whose family had founded the airline over 40 years earlier. Veronica's confident posture disappeared instantly. The executives standing beside her suddenly realized they had witnessed the greatest mistake of their careers. Employees who had ignored Daniel moments earlier lowered their eyes in embarrassment, unable to believe the humble father they had judged owned everything around them. Daniel didn't smile with satisfaction or seek revenge. Instead, he quietly looked through the lounge where frightened employees stood frozen. What hurt him most wasn't the personal insult. It was realizing that countless ordinary passengers without wealth or influence had probably experienced the same treatment every single day. His father's dream had never been about creating an airline for the rich. It had always been about treating every traveler with dignity, regardless of appearance. The emergency board meeting began immediately. Rather than firing people in anger, Daniel asked for months of customer complaints, employee reports, and passenger feedback. The documents painted a heartbreaking picture. Elderly travelers ignored. Young families treated as inconveniences. Disabled passengers left waiting. Staff rewarded for pleasing wealthy clients while overlooking everyone else. The company had forgotten the values that once made it respected around the world. Daniel spent the following weeks traveling anonymously on multiple flights. He experienced long delays, watched employees dismiss struggling parents, and saw airport workers overlook lonely elderly passengers needing simple assistance. Yet he also met remarkable staff members who quietly served people with genuine compassion despite receiving little recognition. Those encounters reminded him that kindness still survived inside the company, it simply needed leadership willing to protect it. Instead of announcing massive layoffs, Daniel launched a complete transformation. Every employee, from executives to gate agents, attended new training centered on empathy, respect, and human dignity. Promotions would no longer depend only on profits but also on compassion shown toward passengers. Employees caught judging people by appearance faced serious consequences, while those demonstrating extraordinary kindness received public recognition and meaningful rewards. Veronica accepted responsibility for her actions. Rather than resigning, she admitted her pride had blinded her to the very people the airline existed to serve. Daniel gave her one final opportunity to earn back trust, believing genuine change begins when people accept their mistakes instead of hiding from them. Over time, she became one of the strongest advocates for treating every passenger equally, proving that humility can transform even the proudest heart. Months later, Daniel returned to the same VIP lounge wearing the same faded jacket. This time, employees greeted every traveler with equal warmth before even checking boarding passes. A young family received help carrying heavy bags. An elderly man was personally escorted to his gate. Lily watched beside her father with a proud smile because she understood the greatest victory wasn't owning an airline, it was changing thousands of lives through simple acts of kindness. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that true greatness comes from humility, please like this video, share it with someone who believes in compassion, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Kindness Echoes so together we can spread more stories that inspire hope. Special request, before you leave, please comment, kindness always flies higher than pride. As Daniel and Lily boarded their flight together, they looked out the window as the aircraft lifted into the sky. The airline had regained more than its reputation, it had rediscovered its soul. Daniel realized that wealth could build airplanes, but only kindness could truly carry people home. And sometimes, the greatest leaders are the ones who never need to prove who they are, because their character speaks long before their name ever does.